Near mint condition, the home of collected editions. And check out that eye, that's exactly what we want to see. Woo, look at that panel, baby. And that, as they say, is that. Hey, all you minties, Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. Join me today for my overview of these latest releases from Fantagraphics. So let's go ahead and take a look at each and every one of these unique books together. And welcome back, everybody. Before going any further, a big thank you to the folks at Fantagraphics for sending us copies of these books that have come out here recently, or at least in the last year. And we do have a different variety of books as well as the topic. And before going any further, please don't forget to hit that like button. That goes a long way for us here on the channel. Small thing you can do, but it does mean the world to us. As you can probably see, each one of these is different in the way that the book is actually designed, like the design of the actual books, and of course the sizes. They're all different sizes to kind of give you an idea of how big these books are, or at least compare them to something that you may be familiar with. Here is a Marvel trade paperback, so that kind of gives you an idea of just how much bigger some of these books are, and then how much shorter some of them are. And this, of course, being the trim size of a single issue. All right, let's go ahead and start today with The Moon Prince. The Moon Prince by Kevin Frazier Much, and showcasing our two protagonists here of Max and Molly. And then you have the Fantagraphics logo here. There is a little bit of a gloss finish to the actual title, and then the back of the book right here. The exhilarating mix of Winsor McCay and Frank Herbert. The Moon Prince shines the breathtaking, emotional, and truly epic feat of comics making. It's by Ezra Clayton Daniels. So this is a soft cover, but we do have French flaps in the front and in the very back. And let's give you the pitch right here. So this book is dedicated to Anne Elizabeth Fraser, who would have loved Max and Molly. And there is an introduction here from Kevin, talking about the making of the book and behind the scenes and how he wanted to get his kids, who are, of course, are the basis of the two protagonists, into these older comics like Little Nemo or like Carl Barks' Duck Comics. And he found that one of the things that he noticed in those books were the portrayals of the different cultures and people from different cultures and different countries. Because again, they were products of their time. So what he wanted to do was write and draw a story about two kids that are on an adventure, kind of like The Wizard of Oz, and appropriately showing the different cultures and the different races. So that's basically what the premise of this is. The backdrop is that of, to me, it seems like it's an older time. It's not like current day. And here, let's go back to the very beginning, because I do love the fact that it's based on these kids. One thing to note that I forgot to note is that you do get maps, by the way, but that's not what I'm noting. This took about 10 years to make. So those kids that Max and Molly are based on are now grown up, which just breaks my heart, because it just goes to show you just how fast kids grow up. So he wanted to write a story for his kids to enjoy. So basically, the pitch of this is you have Max, who's 12 years old, and his sister, Molly. They're both orphans who just kind of spend their day daydreaming. And then the gentleman that you saw a little bit earlier right here tells them that they both have a secret mystical heritage, and he ends up giving them a map to follow, and the map ends up sending them all the way to, you guessed it, the moon, hence the title, The Moon Prince. And this is where they're going to find all kinds of different creatures and face off against monsters, and of course where their last name comes from and what does it have to do with this big adventure. And to me, I think this is just one of those wonderful all ages type of stories. There is a little minor violence here, but nothing I don't think any kid that doesn't have any problems watching The Wizard of Oz, or especially Return to Oz, you got to show them that one. That one's a classic to me. Would have any issues with, but you're going to find all kinds of mystical creatures through here. And the kids do end up getting separated because they kind of have their own, not their own agenda, but just their own way of thinking. Max thinks that he has to fight to protect Molly, while Molly always thinks that there's a way to fix things, and that's through kindness. I love how the story just keeps going. It is one thing after another, whether they're dealing with Queen Melissa, or whether they're dealing with all these primates right here, the blue primates of this Moon Kingdom, and then, of course, the Grus. But that's what this is. This book has 448 pages, and to me, it's one of those books that's all ages. I know that Fantagraphics doesn't usually put the rating on the back of the book, but I had to start with one that I thought, okay, this is definitely one that anybody could read. All the way in the back, you do have acknowledgments here. Then again, the French flap and the bio on Kevin right there, and some of the other things that he's done, like the Rough Pearl, which actually Fantagraphics sent my way back in 2020, and I enjoyed this a lot more because this is something that reminds me of, like, oh, I can completely read this with my kids. So if you're a fan of things like Little Nemo, The Wizard of Oz, or even those old classic adventures from the Carl Barks era of Duck Comics, The Moon Prince is definitely for you. Almost forgot, it is glued binding and printed in this thick, glossy paper stock. And the retail price of this one is $29.99. 448 pages. The Complete Hate, Volume 1. Talk about a book that I have not read since it came out in those early 90s. This is Volume 1 by Peter Bagge, and there's the Fantagraphics logo, The Complete Hate. This has been released previously in a I think they actually just recently did a box set a couple of years ago, so not just recently. But this is the softcover version, and it does come with some French flaps right there. Some praise for the book from the AV Club Under the Radar in Seattle Weekly, because, hey, it's got to be Seattle, right? We are talking about this particular 90s era. Your table of contents. There is a new introduction here, but I think it's, I'm sorry, not a new introduction. It's new to me. It is an introduction from Peter Bagge talking about how he came up with this, how the original idea was supposed to be love and hate. However, at the time, the editors at Fantagraphics, actually it was Kim Thompson that said, why don't you just call it Hate? Because it sounds too much like Love and Rockets, and we already have that going. He's been featured in Entertainment Weekly. As a matter of fact, this is from 1991. Here's him and his daughter. And this is a piece right here by Daniel Klaus. And then you have the covers right here. So this is collecting the first, I want to say 15 issues of Hate. I think that's all. I don't think it's 15. Nope, I was wrong. 15 issues. So I guess Volume 2 will collect all the way to issue number 30 of Hate, and kicking it off with the My Pad and Welcome to It. The book has a total of 348 pages and retails for $29.99. Again, this has been released in hardcover format. So at the very, very beginning, we get to meet our main character, our protagonist, who we're going to be following sort of his adventures, and immediately breaking the fourth wall, introducing you to his pad. This is Buddy Bradley. That's right. That is the main character of the series. Actually, I think it is revealed through here. His full name is Harold Buddy William Bradley. But here you get to meet his apartment, and more importantly, you get to see immediately that he has a supporting cast, and one of the cast members is his roommate, Leonard Stinky. And both of them are kind of losers in their 20s living in this apartment complex. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the way that MTV would do things. Way ahead of MTV Cribs, though, I think. This one also doesn't have a rating, like a age rating. But to me, honestly, I know it's geared towards older teens, but to me, I think a teenager would really dig this, especially a teenager interested in this particular era of music and Gen X culture, and then getting into the whole millennial type of culture, because we are going to be going into the 90s. So Buddy is a 20-something-year-old kind of a loser whose life is falling apart. He had a bit of a one-night stand with a character that we'll see through here that kind of will become his girlfriend, and that is what is her name? Valerie. and she's a bit of a feminist, and and suffers from depression. So there's a lot of stories in here that are social and political commentary, and you may not see it at first, but they are definitely there. And there's a lot of fourth wall breaking here that happens in each of these issues. I'm surprised they didn't put the covers in between the stories. And you do have the table of contents right here telling you where you're going to find each of these stories. Like here, let's go to issue number 3. So this came out in the fall of 1990. This will tell you when it originally came out. So we're looking at books that came out in 1990 to 1994. So let's go to page 67, for example, to get to issue number 3. So yeah, I'm surprised they didn't do a cover. They put all the covers in the front. But this is the enigma that is George Cecil Hamilton III. And this is George. George is the other roommate, and he's more of an introvert. And in here, you get to see that he's a little bit more of a conspiracy theorist, more so than any of the other roommates. And because he's African American, he doesn't really feel like he fits into the cultural group that Buddy is making. But in here, you do get to see more of George in the third one. I really like this issue right here. And it's conspiracy theories about everything, by the way. Not just spaceships, but restaurants like McDonald's and things like that. Again, because it is a social and political commentary on life. But also this grunge scene that was happening in Seattle at the time. And they do end up leaving Seattle later on. I think that's in book 2. And I haven't read this stuff in years. And the reason I read it, because this wasn't up my alley in the night, especially when it was coming out, was because there was an old comic book store that my friends and I went to on a road trip to go and visit my cousins. They were living in Pennsylvania. Where were they? Pekin? I can't remember where they were living in Pennsylvania. But we stopped at this middle of nowhere with a hole-in-the-wall comic book store, and they had stacks and stacks and stacks of independent comics. And one of my friends ended up buying a bunch of the Hate books, and I can't remember what I ended up buying. Probably something like Cerebus, something that I try to fit in because I'm like, oh, everybody's buying artsy independent stuff. Not me, buddy. Not Buddy Bradley, not me, it's just Buddy. But anyway, I'm gonna get something unique, like Ninja Turtles and Cerebus and things like that, or maybe even Concrete. But, my buddy Michael ended up getting a whole bunch of these books, and I started reading them because I ran out of things to read on the road trip. And man, I really ended up liking it. It wasn't like I wasn't into this type of abstract art or this cartoony art style at the time, but I really appreciate it now. And going back and reading something like this that I haven't read since, when was that road trip? 1994? 94, 95? 95. It's just crazy, because this really does feel like a period piece, or I'm sorry, a slice of what was happening at that time. It's not a period piece. These were actual stories written about that time, during that time. This is the slumming with Buddy and Lisa, and this is when Lisa and Buddy end up living in a relationship and kind of drinking way too much and just dirty and living like animals. And the roommates are kind of fed up with the way they are living. This is the collector scum. So Buddy ends up setting up at the local flea market and he ends up having issues with what is this dude's name? It's a really cool name. Yahtzee? I think it's Yahtzee Murphy, something like that. And they end up, like, him and Lisa end up trying to steal some tapes. If y'all remember tapes. Like, cassette tapes. But anyway, it all has to do with this whole feud that happens at this local flea market. If you've never read this, it's a lot of fun. This is the cheaper version to get them. $29.99, and you get all 15 of the first issues, 348 pages. I believe there's a total of 3, because there were 30 in total, and then there were annuals. And $29.99. The book is printed in this matte paper stock, and it does half glued binding. I'm not sure if, I'm pretty sure the hardcover has, the box set that came out has the sewn binding, but it's a cheaper, more affordable way to get this particular stories or this era of comics. World Within the World, collected short comics, 2010 to 2022. This is by Julia Froder. I'm sure that is not how you pronounce her name. But this is a hardcover. It does come with a dust jacket, which has kind of like this leather or faux leather look to it. The book retails for $39.99. Here, let's actually take it out the dust jacket and talk about the build first. So it is sewn binding, and it is printed in this thick matte paper stock that has different tones throughout it because they're separating the different stories. Here's your table of contents, telling you where you're going to find each and every one of the stories. The book itself has 336 pages. What this is a collection of 30 short stories. No, they are not all like this. I had to put my readers on to read this. As a matter of fact, most of them are actual sequential art. This one here has a little bit more of adult content right here, mainly due to the sexual content and some of the nudity. But they're all little short stories that were pulled from the decades of writing and drawing. So we're looking at 2010 to 2022. So 12 years, not decades. So just one decade of writing and drawing from Julia. So to me, it's so different than the other books I've talked about so far, because one, we talked about, one is for all ages and it's an adventure story, and the other one by Peter Bagge feels more like, it was almost, to me, always felt like it was autobiographical, just in the way that he wrote the stories. So what Julia's doing, though, is working in short form. Although her short form, honestly, would those panels and the details that she puts in the panels, I think would make for about 20 pages, would make for a bigger American comic. Just how much work she puts into these books. A lot of the stories, are very supernatural. Some of them feel like they have like a Twilight Zone feel to it, or maybe like a Hitchcock type of story. Some of them you may have to read twice because they don't make any sense. Some of them you may need to read a few more times, and they still don't make any sense because that's the way that she writes. It's almost like a stream of consciousness, and taking just little parts of these people's lives and putting them into paper. And again, they are done in different colors because there's different stories collected through here. Some of them are dialogue heavy, and others hardly have any kind of dialogue. And some have a supernatural feel, and others have like more of a something real that could happen to like one of your neighbors. But not every one of these are dark. There are stories in here that talk about hope and light, and that light at the end of the tunnel. And not everything is sexual or demonic. Sorry, skipping some pages, because as soon as I said sexual, of course there was a sex scene. Anyway, some of the stories are just about people living together and learning to live with each other. And I think I looked into this way too much, because I was looking at the color, and I'm like, okay, surely the color is a hint as to what type of mood, what type of story this is supposed to be. But don't look into that, really. Like, I think you will be fine just reading this without looking too deep into it. So the settings and the periods are all from modern time, and sometimes it's medieval time. So it really varies in here for these particular stories that are trying to teach you some lessons, and also some of them I think are just her having fun. And I like anthologies like this because you don't have to read it I didn't read it in one sitting. As a matter of fact, this and the next books I'm talking about all went to Europe with me. I read all of these on the plane, and this one, I think, on the way to Berlin, and then on the way to Amsterdam. Yeah, this one took about 3 or 4 sittings, but I had a lot of fun with it. It's a lot different than the other books, for sure. And it is, again, sewn binding and printed in this matte paper stock. And that is World Within the World. Buff Soul. I love the design of this book. I have to talk a little bit about it. You have the sparkly, glittery type of colors that you would find in Trapper Keepers. A lot of use of emboss and deboss going on, especially with the title. And this is Moa Romanova. Now, this, I mentioned Hate being autobiographical. This feels more like an autobiographical book, too. No dust jacket, just the design on the book. Wanted to show. And actually, I wonder if the design is Kayla. Yeah, it is Kayla E. I love Precious Rubbish, and she designed all that, of course, because she was the creator behind that. But Buff Soul is Moa Romanova's latest work. She had done a story, what was it, Goblin Girl, and she did something very similar to this a few years back. I haven't read that one, but I did read Goblin Girl. And this is, I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. The translation is Melissa Bowers. Okay, so basically, when I said that this is autobiographical, it's really unique in the way that this is done because, okay, this is the story that follows our main character, who again is the creator, Moa Romanova. And as she ends up joining a group of friends, and they're all Swedish musicians, but they're in tour in the United States. And I thought that was really cool because in here you're going to see some like real bands that show up through here in America and how they toured together, and you know how perhaps they had to live together on the road and things like that. So it's her experience here through these pages as to how she. Hey, that's Buzz. How she stayed with these people and how she lived with her friends while also dealing with some of her past, her history. And a lot of it has to do with some, unfortunately, dark themes that happen in her life. And this is about learning to cope with that and living together. So she ends up joining, what is her name? Assa. Assa's her name, and the Swedish band. And what is the name of the band? It's Shit Kid. That's the name of the band. So I tried to look up some of their music, and I completely forgot when I had read this in Europe, and I was like, okay, I gotta read this, or I gotta look up some of the music when I get back to the States, and I completely forgot. Obviously, Moa has a unique art style. You know, everybody has little heads, long limbs. It kind of reminds me of the Popeye, like those, I cannot remember the name of those creatures in Popeye that have like the little heads and the big muscular type of bodies. But that's just her art style. So this is all about Moa having this opportunity to go along with Assa and all her friends, going through California, going through Texas, and there's other bandmates. There's Lena, and then how Shit Kid, this punk band, ends up playing at all these little small venues. And then, of course, talking about some of the things that had happened in the past between Moa and her regrets with something that happened between her and her friend Sarah. And just substance abuse. And this one does have mature themes, so keep that in mind. Again, I don't think they put... No, they don't put it on the book itself. The ratings, but I think this one does have mature things just because of the type of story it's telling. Also interesting that we're talking about like real people and real bands and real places. So I don't know how much of this, and the next book I'm going to be talking about, I feel the same way. I don't know how much of this what is real, like who some of these people are. While I know some of the bands and I recognize some of the band names, I'm not 100% sure if I know like who the band members are and whether they were the band members during this time or not. But I find this kind of story really interesting because this is a small part of her life when she was in her 20s, traveling, you know, she's Swedish, and traveling in America with her Swedish friends that happen to be this punk band that people really liked in America. So I thought that was really cool. Not a lot of comics about that. So to me, it's a welcome addition. I enjoyed it for what it was. And in the back, we do have an afterwards, or not an afterwards, a epilogue, and then acknowledgments here. Now, the build of the book has sewn binding, and it has a total of 240 pages. And printed in this thick, glossy paper stock. And that is what Buff Soul is. The Farewell Song of Marcel Labrume is the next book I'm going to be talking about. This is a hardcover, and we do have a little bit of a glossy finish right here on the actual title, and a little embossing going on there with the flat panels. This is all by Attilio Micheluzzi, I believe is how you may pronounce that. This has been translated into English for the very first time, and it is telling two different stories. The first one set in Beirut in 1941. This is the one book out of this whole batch that I had a difficult time keeping up with. By the way, nothing to do with his art. It is amazing, and I'm so glad that we are getting more European books over here in America, translated into English for the first time. I think it's just, we are living in an amazing time of collected editions. I've always said this is the golden age of collected editions, and I don't want it to go away. For the first time, we're getting so many just different styles of books, and I'm loving it. The thing with this book is because it's a big part of history, that I think you might benefit from actually knowing or being a big history buff about this time period in Beirut. Because they do talk about real people, they do talk about different dictators and wars, and there's a lot of characters that are thrown in here that are real people. So much so that I thought the main character of Marcel Labrume was a real person. And I don't know if he is or not, I'll be honest with you. I have no idea. So Marcel is a journalist that gets kind of caught in the middle of like smuggling somebody out of this country, and ends up crossing paths with Carol Gibson. Again, somebody I'm not sure if she's a real person or not. And during this time, the Germans are suspecting Carol Gibson to be a spy. So now he has to deliver a Jewish man that the Germans want to Palestine. That's what the first book is about. I don't know if he meant for more of the story to continue. I really think that maybe this was supposed to be a one and done type of story. Because by the end of it, you get the sense that, oh, perhaps he died. But then we get the second story collected in here, and that's In Search of Lost Time, as he told it to me. And now we get the sense that perhaps he had a little bit of amnesia because he stepped on a mine and he really didn't die. And in here, something really cool starts happening that I have seen in Eurocomics before, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we have the narrator talking, and I believe that is supposed to be Attilio talking, because at first you get the sense that it could be Marcel talking to himself, but then they start arguing. So I think it's our writer talking to the main character, and the main character talking back to him through a series of like inner monologue. And I thought that was really unique as they're arguing, and I guess you could think that he's crazy, but no. So in this one, this is taking place in 1942. He ends up getting captured here in the Battle of Bur Hashem and becomes a POW. That's what this storyline is about. And this one, I think, does have older teen type of scenes in here. And what is, to me, I think the most difficult part, and why I said people from Europe may benefit more so, because they probably studied a lot more of this part of history than we did in America, because some of it is just vague to me. And I think you just have to do a lot of research, is that you are given so many characters. You're introduced, especially in the first story, you're introduced to so many characters that play an important part. Whether they were real or not, though, is another thing, too. And then you're introduced to our main cast of characters, who he's trying to smuggle out. And this is what I meant, that he was, like, the ending of the first book is that, oh yeah, apparently he got killed, and presumably died in 1942, but then we get the story in 1942 where he was a POW. The book has 144 pages and retails for $24.99. This is the first part. I hope they keep bringing more. I know we're getting Corto Maltese, and oh my gosh, there's a lot of that type of influence through here. I love his sequential art. I spoke about the story and how confusing it can be with all the different characters, but all the characters do look different. Like, they really look like human beings that you would know. And also, it's so easy to follow this artwork. I love it, and it's probably will take another read through to get the whole thing. But the book itself is sewn binding and printed in this thick matte paper stock, and it is all in black and white. And that is the farewell song of Marcel Labrume. Goes like this. This book is something I have been wanting to read because you had me at Jordan Crane, and I'm a huge fan of his work, and oh my gosh, this is so unique. Look at, okay, I don't think I can do it justice, but the actual spine of the book feels like it's just glued together, and then on top of it, on top of that clear glue, you get the title goes like this. And you could kind of make a little bit of the name right there, Fantagraphics logo. This feels more like a portfolio piece, like the way that this is printed. So let's actually go ahead and open it up. This, by the way, gets my seal of approval for this batch of books. Every one of these books are great, unique, and different in their own way. But this, I just love this type of stuff. So in here, you get different stories that are collected and printed in different paper stock too. Like this right here, this piece right here, feels like it's thicker than the actual cover. And the paper stock here seems almost like really thin tracing paper. And then we get into this paper stock right here, which is glossy paper stock. This is the Hand of Gold. It's all about a cowboy that ends up finding another cowboy, perhaps, who died in a battle, and has this little suitcase handcuffed to his hand. He cuts his hand off, and then he gets paranoid that somebody's coming after him. In between stories, we do get these just different pieces of art right here, these big splash pages, and this is just collecting different types of genres in short stories over the past 25 years. It's packed in this anthology type of series. Some of them make absolutely no sense. Below the Shade of Night, it's about this young kid right here who doesn't feel like he belongs anywhere, whether it's with his friend, whether it's at home. This one does have mature themes, by the way, for the different stories through here. But he ends up dying. Like, he ends up getting hit by a car, and then his ghost is left to wander the world, and you can find out what happens. All of these stories feel a little bit different, like you're taking a part of the story. It's about a grandfather connecting with his granddaughter. Again, double page spreads and splash pages separating the stories. I think this one's my favorite one. It's about this guy named Leonard and his wife Dolores, and his wife having an affair, and him kind of thinking that she's having an affair. It's split up into two different parts, and it's about both of them just getting reacquainted with each other. And it may seem like completely nothing like you'd be interested in reading when I'm pitching it that way, but it's my kind of story. I love independent movies like that. I love independent short stories like that. And when comics, especially Fantagraphics, put out stories, anthologies like this, it's a nice break from the norm. It's a nice break from Batman. It's a nice break from X-Men. I can't believe I just said that. But you do need breaks from time to time. Otherwise, you get burnt out. I mean, I don't know who I envy the people that only read Spider-Man, that only read Batman, that only read X-Men. But how can you read X-Men if not read Wolverine, X-Force, Excalibur? What is wrong with you? Anyway, I do envy those people, but I need breaks in between, and I think this is one of those perfect palate cleansers. I use manga for that way. But an anthology series like this is exactly something I need up my alley. There's a woman that fantasizes about killing another woman. This is a really weird sci-fi story about this asteroid and these two guys getting to know each other while they're digging in this asteroid. And to me, it's just little corners of life that are captured here. Some of them feel like dream sequences, some seem like nightmare fuel, and I just could not put it down. Even though it's an anthology palate cleanser, as I said, that you read in between books, to me, I could not put it down, and I want more. But I'm a big big fan of Jordan Crane and his art style and his colors, and oh my gosh, this was just such a unique experience. And yes, that's what I haven't said. This feels less like a comic book and more like I'm seeing these dream sequences or these part of these people's life stories with them. This book has 192 pages and retails for $39.99. It's printed in all kinds of different paper stock, matte paper, newsprint paper, thick glossy paper, really thick, like hard type of paper, and then like tracing paper. It's a unique project, and I wish we would see more of this stuff. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcon at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count and build of each of these books. In the comments down below, let me know which Fantagraphics books you have picked up lately, which one piqued your interest, which one you had no idea they translated into English, or which one you had no idea they even came out with recently. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Smash that like button on the way out. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.